Well, it's Sunday afternoon and the futures are up. You have the S&P minis are up 250 and let me get a color you can see here. It's up 250 and the Nasdaq minis are up 1275. So, you know, Friday's action wasn't really that decisive in terms of what the indexes are doing. If we pull the curtain back here and we look at the index charts, you can see the Nasdaq on lighter volume reverse. You can't see that color. Here we go. Nasdaq reversed near its 50-day line right here. So the volume is lighter. So you don't know if this thing is going to, is it going to break to the downside or is it going to triangulate and tighten up and then maybe we come out of here later on in the summer or, beyond summer, maybe early October, maybe we're just chopping around for a while. I think that's really been the environment. If we look at the S&P 500, the same thing here, and it did not and mainly because it doesn't have primarily big stock Nasdaq names that reverse like Amazon, Microsoft, and Intel. It held very tight on Friday. Volume dried up, so it almost looks like it's trying to consolidate in here for at least a day, and maybe it does make a run above its 50-day moving average. So you don't want to get locked into a bullish or bearish frame of mind. We want to wait and see what some of these names do. And by the same token, even though Amazon was a great short on Friday, it's not clear to me necessarily that this thing is cooked. So they could fill the gap down in here and turn. Yeah, we had the reversal on the breakout attempt, but there could have been an allocation trade. In other words, institutions that have been overweighted Amazon, they use the gap up move, the breakout, to sell into and cut back their position. Once they're done, then the thing will stabilize and maybe it turns back to the upside. So I would be open to that as well, and I'd be looking for support maybe at the lows of the gap window or the 10-day line, which is now pushing above the 50-day moving average, and then see what happens. This, like I said on Thursday night when I did my last video report, it looks like Netflix when it tried to break out and it failed. Similar type of pattern actually, and not really going anywhere now. But notice that, and I don't know if I mentioned this in the report over the weekend, which I think is out already. The volume dried up. You held tight along the 20-day line. Maybe this thing's going to try and make another move back to the highs. So that might be a trade. And in this market, that's all you really have is some trades. And you've got to be on top of it. You really have to anticipate the scenarios that you're looking for. So obviously on Thursday night, I was pretty much dead on. I just hurt my arm patting myself on the back, but I'll get over it. These were shorts on the breakouts, and most people might have thought, oh, they're breaking out, we got to buy them. Why did I think they were going to reverse? I don't know. Something just smelled wrong, and that definitely turned out to be the case. But of course, I'm going to be open-minded about it, and I'm going to wait for the 620 charts to show me what I need to see rather than, yeah, I've got a theory about these things reversing after earnings, but am I just going to step in and start shorting them willy-nilly without some sort of basis and some way to guide my trading so that I don't get caught in a situation where I get my head ripped off, okay? And if we look at these on the 620s, this is Friday morning, okay? I get up at right around here at 5 a.m. or maybe a little. If I'm feeling really motivated, maybe 4 a.m., 4:30. And by this time, I probably got my bowl of oatmeal and my green tea going, and I'm watching Mornings with Maria Bartiromo on Fox, or maybe I've got CNBC with Joe Kernan and his minions in the morning watching the TV and watching my 620 charts. I set these up so that I get pre-open and aftermarket data on my chart, and so I'm watching for signals that occur early in the day, so before the opening. So if I'm operating on the basis of a theory that Intel, Microsoft, and Amazon are going to reverse after these big gap ups, I'm looking for signs. So you get a MACD cross here at about a little past 5:30, I guess, and then that's confirmed right at the opening. The opening would be right here. This is the first bar, and it's already breaking down, I think, by the time you get in here. But you could see about 20 minutes for the opening, you had a confirming signal, and you could have been shorting this. What are you risking? Maybe a point on the upside. So that was the justification for doing that trade. And I hope some of you got into these based on what I was talking about on Thursday night. Same thing happened with Amazon. You had the MACD cross. This occurred less than half an hour before the opening. Come on now. Here we go. And you didn't have a MACD cross until you got down here. So I'm sorry, the moving average cross, not a MACD cross. But you did see that you got a little stretchy and then you crossed up here. And I'm not sure what this move is about. I saw this occurring just before 6 o'clock as I'm sitting there eating my breakfast. And it seemed to me a little suspicious. So I'm just kind of watching for this thing to give way. You get across here, so you could get short up in here. By the time we open up, it's already coming down, 30, 40 points, which is only by 2 or 3%. So nothing to get excited on a percentage basis, but you're taking a lot of points out of these things. And as I often point out, when you get a sharp break right at the opening in stocks on the short side, that usually runs for the first couple hours. In this case, this went on until we got to not even an hour and a half after the opening where it bottomed out, and then you had a rally back into the 50-day, and then it just kind of trundled about and didn't make any further downside progress from there. So that this is the fast part, the fat part of the move, and the fast part. And you take your profits when you start to see signs of things getting a little bit stretchy. Like here's the MACD cross down here. I don't know why this is changing on me, but it is. And you get the MACD cross down here, you can cover. You rally up into the 20 period, and then you just kind of trickle lower most of the day, for most of the rest of the day, in fact. And just look at the way this happens. You closed around right here. And so you could have come in and shorted these things right at the opening or before the opening and take some nice profits right off the bat in the first hour and a half and take the rest of the day off. Not bad for a couple hours work, right? So the other one was Microsoft, which didn't really work as well, but you can definitely see that before the opening, it was already starting to cross up here, and it's kind of flaking out in here, and then right at the open, it just broke. So you could have gotten a couple, 2.5 points out of that very quickly. Another break here, and then you finally get a MACD cross down here, and you're turning back to the upside, and then it just kind of, edges slightly higher for the rest of the day. And this is where the late shorts come in. They didn't get in on it here, but they want to come in here, and they're just frustrated because there's no real movement for the rest of the day. So this is actually very typical and something that I'll see a lot in this market, where on the short side, if you pick the right setup, and that requires a little bit of cunning and instincts and all that, and that's why I'm doing these videos, to kind of let you guys in on that aspect of my own process and things I'm looking for to confirm theories that I have based on what I'm sensing, you know. And I know that sounds kind of nebulous and not something I can formulate for you and tell you, when the moon is in the 7th house and Jupiter aligns with Mars, you do this. It's more like, okay, we're watching the 620 and we're going to feel these trades out and take the trades when we see the signals, such as the MACD cross in pre-open trading, or even right after the opening if you get a confirming signal on the moving averages on the 620 chart, and go from there. And I may be wrong, I may be right, but Friday was one of those days where you were very right. And also earlier in the week, we had names like Cree that were doing very nicely for us. On Wednesday, on Tuesday night, I did a video and I talked about shorting Cree into the open. It opened like 42.72, and then boom, it just broke hard. Then you get another rally into the 50-day line, and in my Wednesday report, I did say that if you get a weak rally into the 50-day line, you can hit it again. So that's work. That's like a handful of ideas that work pretty well here if you're hitting them. On the long side, I don't really see anything that thrills me. I do like Boeing, and mainly because you had a big move after earnings on big volume, and then that's a pocket pivot, okay, in the base. And volume's drying up on Friday. You're holding very tight. This probably goes higher. Now, there's another kicker here, which is the fact that you have Treasury Secretary Mnuchin. What a name. Makes me think of the Wizard of Oz, the Munchkins. Mnuchin. Anyways, he's going to go to China and negotiate with the Chinese, and maybe they're going to work something out, and everything's going to be wonderful, and the tariffs won't turn out to be so bad, and Boeing's going to sell the Chinese a whole bunch of planes. And whoever else they sell to, but they had a great earnings report. So what I'm watching for here is that I'm actually willing to take a shot here and take a position and then use the 20-day line, the 10-day line, or the 50-day line as my stop. I think I wrote about this in the report. So I like that. This is probably my favorite long situation because there's a news kicker if things work out. Now, the flip side is that something nasty comes out of these negotiations and the thing blows apart. Well, that's why you would have to be very nimble and maybe even set an automatic stop loss order on your broker's platform or whatever you use to trade. And if it hits, you're just gone. You can always come back if it sets up again. So I'd watch that, So I'm also watching Amazon to see if that thing does find support somewhere and then turns back into a long. Intel, maybe that too. I mean, these earnings reports were blowout earnings. So unless the assumption is that these are the peak earnings these stocks are going to see, then I think they could still be in play and fake everybody out. So I also like First Solar. I'd watch how that one comes in. They had a good earnings report. And for the most part, I think you're looking at a kind of news-driven week because you've got Apple earnings on Tuesday, you've got the Fed on Wednesday with their policy announcement, and you have these Treasury Secretary Munchkin in China with his counterparts there babbling about tariffs and trying to work out a nice, happy solution. And if something like that happens, then maybe you get some Chinese names moving. I know Baidu's been hopping and bopping here. It had a gap up, I think, on earnings on Friday, and it actually held up pretty well. And I'm not sure, if this is something I'd want to step into. The low here is 245.63, so you're a couple of percent above that. Maybe if you drifted in and hung tight and the volume contracted, you could think about buying something like that. But for the most part, Chinese names have been whacked. But Baozun, which is sitting here along the lows of this flag, okay, we're right. You got a little undercut here, and close back above the 50-day moving average, and now you're holding sort of tight along the 50-day as volume dries up. So this may be a candidate to keep an eye on this week as a potential buy opportunity if there's something favorable that comes out of the negotiations between Munchkin and his Chinese counterparts. So I think for the most part, though, Chinese names have been whacked, and I think you're probably maybe you're a little short on names that have, say, coherent long setups. Auto Home at its 20-day line with volume drying up. You can see that here. So here, if you need me to point that out, there it is right here. And it's sitting right at the 20-day line here. And I think that's pretty much it in terms of names that look really constructive. Otherwise, you've got stuff like Weibo coming off the lows, maybe Alibaba coming off the lows, maybe Sina, which owns Weibo, a big chunk of it, way off the lows. And I guess some of these could be in position for a turn, especially when you look at the fact that they're coming down. Let's see, I want the pencil, thank you. And volume is drawing up, so maybe they're in a position, you have an undercut and rally here where they're going to rally. So you might want to watch some of these, okay? And we'll see what happens. But that's kind of what I got my eye on, and maybe I'll do another video tomorrow or Tuesday if I'm starting to see some other things that I like. But I think the fat part of the profit party occurred earlier in the week when we nailed some of these stocks that were gapping up after earnings. And we'll just see what transpires this week. I've got a couple things, like the Boeing that I think looks interesting in the Chinese play if that sets up properly. But again, look for undercut and rally type moves. And also earnings going to come out in Square, I think, is coming out. These other names, the cybersecurity names, as I discussed in the report. So we want to be, open to whatever transpires here, and we'll just see what happens and be ready to move with it, because I think that's how this market operates. You just see a setup developing rather quickly. Either you're anticipating something, and then it confirms once the trading action starts, and you see the price volume action you're looking for to confirm, such as we saw with Amazon, Microsoft, and Intel on Friday, when my theory was that they would reverse and the gap up moves after earnings would be sold into, which is exactly what happened. Same thing with Cree earlier in the week. Same thing with Infi. So that's what we're looking for in terms of where the new setups are going to come this week. And I don't see a lot right now, though I have a couple of theories, as I've just pointed out. We'll just see where we go from there. So, without further ado, I think I will end this webinar and enjoy a nice Sunday night chicken dinner that my wife is making. And I hope the rest of you enjoy your Sunday evening. We'll catch you later. Have a great rest of your weekend.